Hey everybody, today we are diving into something that I know almost all of us struggle with at some point, and that is worrying if people are judging us. Welcome to your Anxiety Toolkit, where we talk about building a life you love while managing anxiety, maybe OCD, panic, and all the challenging emotions that come with it. My name is Kimberley Quinlan. I am a licensed anxiety specialist, and today we're discussing how to stop worrying if people are judging you. Now, let's be real for a second. I want you to raise your hand if you've ever felt that sinking feeling in your gut. You're worrying about what someone might think about you. It might be at work, with friends, on social media, or even just as you walk down the street. Or instead of that, it's a sinking feeling. Maybe you feel like you're a deer in headlights and your body goes into fight, flight, and freeze. Maybe you feel nothing but terror. We all fear being judged. One thing that often really concerns me is when people on the internet are out saying, "Don't worry, no one is judging you, don't be silly, you're great." Now, while that's lovely to hear and might make you feel less anxious for a little while, the truth is sometimes people do judge us. But what if I told you there is a way to lean into that uncertainty and anxiety about what they're thinking and move through that fear so that you can move on and live your life without constantly being weighed down by it? Now, before we dive deeper into these ideas and discuss how to actually manage the fear that people are judging you, let's look at the facts. We want to get a little close here. So let's talk about something called the spotlight effect. The spotlight effect is a psychological concept. I talk with my clients all the time, and it demonstrates how we, when we're anxious, overestimate how much other people notice about us. We experience this as if we are on stage, as if we're in a room filled with people and the spotlight is only on us. We feel like everyone is watching us and us only. And when we walk into a room, we wholeheartedly believe that everyone is watching our every move, scrutinizing our actions, and noticing every little mistake we make. We feel them watching us with our whole body. Is that you? What is interesting is that research shows us that this interpretation is not realistic. In the day-to-day, unless you're like Taylor Swift up on a stage where everyone is watching you, people are far more focused on themselves than they are on us. Instead of scrutinizing us, they're worrying about their own insecurities and how they might be perceived. Maybe they're thinking about what they'll have for lunch today. Maybe they're thinking about a fight that they just had with their girlfriend, or maybe a stressful deadline that they have at work or school. Maybe they're focusing on holding a fart in. That's what I always imagine. Like that look on their face, we assume it's about us, but maybe they're holding a fart. Most of the time, they're thinking about them. And understanding the spotlight effect can be incredibly freeing, and it helps us realize that we're actually not in the spotlight as much as we think we are. Most of the time, people aren't paying nearly as much attention as we fear. Now, keeping this in mind, it can be a very powerful tool, especially in letting go of that fear and that feeling that you feel. So let's get to the real meat of this now. Let's talk about the fear of judgment. The fear of judgment is rooted in something very human, which is the need for belonging. We are hardwired to care about what people think of us. It's coming from an evolutionary perspective. It helped us survive. But in today's world, we've taken it too far and it's gotten out of hand. The fear of being judged only keeps us playing small, overthinking our every move, exhausting ourselves in the process. And here's the secret. Let them judge you. We want to practice reps of letting people have opinions about you. The truth is, there will be people who judge you, especially if you're doing something brave. They'll also judge you if you don't do something brave. They might misunderstand you. They might make assumptions about you. They may even say things that don't align with actually who you are, and that is okay. Really, it is. As someone who's public on social media, I often have to go head to head with the fact that some people don't like me. In fact, I've had people who's made it their daily task to make sure I know how much they don't like me on social media. They have made very, very blatant comments saying, I actually hate you, as for everybody to see. But the thing is, that's okay. Does it hurt my feelings at first? Absolutely. But with this practice of letting them have an opinion and working through that, I've learned, because I was forced to learn this skill, it was out of my control, I've learned that I can actually let people have opinions about me. Was it easy? No. Is it easy? Still no. But it's way less painful than it used to be because I had this opportunity to practice over and over again. Again, putting in the reps of letting people judge me and standing back and letting go of holding on so tight to trying to get them not to trying to prevent them from noticing something about me and feeling like I have to constantly be perfect. Now I can just go, okay, it's happened. And that was actually some version of a blessing in disguise. It forced me into doing this work, in which I'm pretty grateful for now, if I can be totally honest. One of the things that was most helpful is I had to let them misunderstand me, and I had to allow them to project their view about what is wrong onto me. And I get to lay down my ego and my pride and allow them to have their opinions, knowing that their opinions aren't facts. The first big shift for me was, as I started to work with this, is let them judge me. Just lay it down. Now, I know that's not what you were hoping for here today, but believe me, it will change your life. Instead of fighting against the idea that someone might be judging you, what if you just respected their right to have an opinion? Just allowed it. What if you said, okay, someone out there might not like me and might not like this version of me, and that is okay. Because here is the thing. Their opinion is not about you. It's about them, their experiences, their worldview. We can't control it, and more importantly, we don't have to. If someone watches this video and thinks, ew, I hate Kimberley's accent, that doesn't mean there's something wrong with my accent. It just means that they have an opinion about accents. Opinions are not facts. And similarly, letting people misunderstand you is also a powerful tool for reclaiming the peace, because you will be misunderstood. You'll be misunderstood by your coworkers, your friends, your family members. And while at first your instinct might be to try and over-explain yourself and urgently convince them that your intentions were good and you're a good person, what if we just let them have an opinion? What if we accepted that not everyone is going to understand our choices? That's totally okay. You don't need everybody's approval to be worthy or happy. What matters most is that you show up and act in accordance to your values. If you value being kind, be kind. If you value being expressive with your clothing, do that. And allow them to have opinions of you. Let them. And do nothing, right? Don't try to change their opinions. Again, opinions are not facts. Now, this does not mean that you can't be in conversation with people who don't agree with you, right? Not at all. right? It doesn't mean that you can't stand up for yourself or have those conversations. This episode is not about silencing you or silencing other people. Instead, it's more about you managing your internal experience and the emotions and reactions you have to their judgments so that you can respond in a regulated, value-based way. As many of you know, again, I've had a series of people who hate me. They've spread rumors about me. They've said horrible things about me on the internet. The only real discomfort I had to navigate is the emotions I have when I feel when they have their opinions about me. For me, it's about managing not just the anxiety, but emotions. One of the biggest emotions is shame. Shame is a powerful emotion that often arises when we feel like we're being judged. It can feel like an absolute heavy weight, telling us that like we're not good enough, that something is desperately wrong with us, that we're flawed. When I talk with my clients about the fear of being judged by others, they also report that they can tolerate the feeling of being judged, but it's the feeling of shame that is the most painful. Maybe that's true for you too. Often people will avoid social events just to avoid experiencing shame. Some even say that the shame feels so intolerable, right? So one way to manage shame is through self-compassion, validating yourself and how it doesn't feel good when people judge us, right? The antidote to shame is treating yourself with gentle, loving kindness. And if we were really to zero in on that real work, that key practice of self-compassion can help us navigate this and recognize that this is a normal part of common humanity. Common humanity is identifying that all humans experience being judged. All humans get misunderstood. Everybody makes mistakes. And being imperfect is just, unfortunately, a part of being human. When you feel shame, you just want to take a moment, take a breath. And maybe you want to say to yourself, it's okay. It's okay that I feel this. I'm not alone in feeling this way. And you also have to remember that just because you feel a feeling of shame doesn't mean you are inherently bad or unworthy. Again, shame tells lies, similar to like depression or anxiety. It might tell us you're a bad person or inadequate. But remember, just because you think something doesn't mean it's true. And just because you feel something doesn't mean it's true either. Our job is to mindfully and compassionately allow shame to rise and fall on its own. We want to notice it, allow it. We don't want to get involved with it. We don't want to do a dance with it and go down the rabbit hole with it and find all the proof that you are a horrible, embarrassing, humiliating person. That's simply not nice. It's not fair, and it's not helpful, and it's not true. To be honest, so much of the work we all need to do when we have shame is to not mess with it. Do not engage in shame's narrative. We want to label it as shame and get back to doing what's important to us. Now, humiliation and embarrassment are closely related to shame, and they also often stem from specific situations where we feel exposed or vulnerable. And a helpful tool for managing these emotions is, again, to practice normalizing and validating yourself and reminding yourself that everyone has embarrassing moments. You're not alone, absolutely. And your value as a person is not defined by one awkward or uncomfortable experience. Let me also say here, because I've had this conversation with a lot of my clients, feeling awkward is a normal part of communication. Please do not go in and tell yourself that every encounter should be awkward-free, right? Let it be awkward. It's a normal part of communicating. It's okay. That's a very normal part of being in social communication. The last thing I want to tell you is to make space for uncertainty. At the end of the day, we don't know what people are thinking. We have to be okay with not knowing how they think, and we have to also not assume the worst. If you are like an assume the worst kind of person, this is going to be the most absolute important skill for you to take with you as you leave this episode, because you're going to need that uncertainty to practice during these social settings. Allow uncertainty to be there. Be gentle with yourself as the uncertainty rises and falls. For some people, they really struggle with this one part. And it's so important that you tackle it. Now, another piece of this uncertainty is also managing anticipatory anxiety. Anticipatory anxiety is the anxiety we feel when we worry something will happen. It hasn't happened yet, but we feel that fear that it will happen in the future. Anticipatory anxiety makes you focus on the future, and it causes you to spend this moment worrying and ruminating about a moment that hasn't even happened yet. One way that you can manage anticipatory anxiety is through mindfulness. Bring attention to the present, not the future. Don't get caught up in future worries, and remind yourself, I can be uncertain. I can stay in the uncertain. And when and if something happens, I will figure it out then, that I can tolerate the uncertainty. When we practice being uncertain, the truth is, that's the facts. We don't know how things will work. We have to sort of lean into the facts that we don't know how it works. We have to be disciplined and allow ourselves to come back to the present. And this takes a lot of practice. I get it. It takes a lot of training, a lot of reps, but it's so worth it, right? If there's anything you can get good at, it's practicing being uncertain if you have anxiety. The key is also to remember that all of these emotions they're just waves of emotions. They're just temporary. They're not going to last forever. And by practicing self-compassion and mindfulness as you ride these waves, we can actually not be pulled under from it. Okay, let's talk now about some practical skills to help you with the fear of being judged. As always, I've already sort of said it, is we need tons of self-compassion. Start by being kind to yourself. Remind yourself that feeling worried about judgment is just a normal part of being a human. Take a deep breath and say to yourself, it's okay. It's okay that I'm feeling this way. I'm not alone. And then put your full attention on not beating yourself up or ruminating about what people, quote unquote, maybe think about you. Remember that spotlight effect? That's important to remember. The second thing to focus on is willingness. We have to be willing to be uncomfortable. We have to be willing to feel emotions like uncertainty. Willingness is about opening up to discomfort, right? We know we can't make the fear of judgment go away, but we can be willing to experience that fear. When you notice yourself trying to avoid somebody's disapproving glance, take a pause and try leaning into that discomfort, right? Remind yourself, I can handle being judged, right? From a clinical perspective, I try to always put clients and put the focus on exposure, which this is really fun. It actually is really leaning in. So one of the best ways to let go of judgment is through exposure. Start small. Wear an outfit you love, but you felt self-conscious in, right? Speak up in a meeting, right? Even if you're scared of what others might think, practice doing it on purpose. By exposing yourself to these situations, you're teaching your brain that you can tolerate the discomfort of being judged. Another really powerful twist on exposure therapy is something we call rejection therapy. Rejection therapy is all about intentionally putting yourself in situations where you're trying to be rejected. This is done so that you can build resilience to the discomfort and rejection and rejudgment that you might feel. Now, as crazy as that sounds, it actually is really kind of fun. It might sound a little intimidating at first and maybe a little crazy, but it's actually very empowering. Start with challenges like asking somebody for a discount at a store or asking a stranger for spare change. The goal isn't actually to get a yes. The goal is to get comfortable with the possibility of hearing a no and realizing you can survive it. I've had so many clients use this strategy, hello Theo, and overcome their fear by being rejected, right, or judged. Their recovery has skyrocketed because they really leaned into being judged. The key is that they practice self-kindness every step of the way. You can't go out and do these exposures, but then beat yourself up the whole time. It totally just defeats the purpose. However, what they learned and what I've learned is over time, when we lean in a little, we actually become less afraid of the rejection and less concerned about what people think, which is huge, right? So powerful. It's so kind of paradoxical, but so important. So let's review. At the end of the day, living in the fear of what others think about us completely robs us of joy. You deserve to take up space. You deserve to be yourself, even if others don't fully understand what that means. Let them judge. Let them misunderstand you. And while you're at it, give yourself permission to just live your big, beautiful, messy, authentic life. That's hopefully what you take from this. So thank you so much for being here. I hope that this helps you take away a little bit of that fear of being judged. And I hope that you feel empowered to lean in a little bit more. The one thing I want to remind you, as I always say, is it's a beautiful day to do hard things. And I can't wait to see you in next week's episode.